Mr. Sherry. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for accepting the interview today, and thank you for coming today. And I have some of the question about teaching to be a teacher. So can I ask you some question about the
No,
teaching,
yeah,
please?
no, you can't. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, of course you can.
Okay. So, can you introduce yourself about your background first before I ask some question? Thank you.
Sure. So I am an ESL specialist teacher. So I taught in English cram schools for many years, and I've also had some experience teaching at an international school. I do have my teaching certification. I have a master's in education as well, but I use that to work with multilingual learners, particularly English learners. So that's my background, and that's what I'm working in at the moment as an ESL teacher still.
Cool. Okay. So, how do you use data to inform decision for planning and teaching a teaching cycle? Like, because a teaching cycle would be like planning first and then teaching and then assessing the student and then analyze, adapting and then reflects like a teaching cycle. But how do you use the data to inform decision for planning and teaching?
Sure. So a lot of our curriculums are structured to some degree, but we do have some flexibility to change them. So there are some parts that we change based on how well the students perform. So it's really based on the summative assessments. So we have summatives every 6 weeks, maybe 3 times in a semester. And then we take that information and it gives us information about what we would do or how to cater for the students next time. So for some of us, we will move up with the students to the next level. Otherwise, sometimes we teach a new group that comes in. So in both ways, we have to adapt based on that information.
Cool. Okay. So when you plan a lesson, how can you like incorporate engaging teaching strategies? Like what kind of teaching strategies will you use when you teaching? Yeah.
Sure. So there's a lot. I think the main ones are differentiated instruction. So just making sure that it's at an appropriate level for every student. That's really important. Some other ones, yeah, so a variety of group and individual learning activities. We try to make sure that there's a balance in every lesson and not too much of one or too much of the other. Gamification is a big part as well because I teach kids. So gamification in terms of rewards, games, and even just little competitions that's appropriate for each age level. And I'd say lastly, or the last two, yeah, cross-disciplinary exposure. We try to expose kids a lot to the arts. It makes the class much more interesting. So, music, arts, drawing, creating your own story, creative writing, things like that. And lastly, the use of technology. So especially for the older kids, even some of the younger kids too. Yeah, we use digital games, things like Block It, which I'm sure you've heard of, and the use of laptops and other digital devices as well.
Oh, that sounds fun. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your experience for me. And also like to provide differentiate teaching and learning opportunities. And what kind of lesson will you do for like different ability of the students?
Yeah, sure. So it can be a bit tricky because in the curriculum, like in what I teach, it is quite structured, and there are certain things that we need to teach, obviously. But so for example, how do you differentiate a spelling word? So if they need to know how to spell the word ball, then it can be challenging. That's sort of a baseline. So in terms of differentiated activities, often it's about that cross exposure. So maybe layering in different activities that they need to do once they've completed the baseline objective. We do chunking reading activities, especially for the older kids. So, where they need to read a part, we break up a page. So that's an easy opportunity there to give some kids something a bit more challenging, some other kids something a bit easier. I also really like to use choice boards as well. So giving students that opportunity to choose what they do, and giving them some ownership about, their level and what's appropriate for them. And that's pretty helpful.
Oh, wow. That's really good for different level, like different ability of students. Yeah. And so, for when you're teaching, how can you incorporate with that, like general capabilities and cross-curricular priorities when you are teaching? Like, how can you relate with the critical thinking or with the sustainability, something like that? How can you incorporate them?
Sure. So, in terms of those 21st century skills, there are some parts of the lesson where we are giving direct instruction, but there's also a lot of opportunity for, sort of like project work or assignment work or group work. And that's usually where we would start to really activate those 21st century skills. But even in reading activities, reading comprehension, there's a lot of opportunity there, for 21st century skills, obviously. I'm trying to think. Yeah, the use of, other cross-curricular stuff I mentioned before, just like the arts and technology. These would be the big ones that we do a lot of cross exposure for. Yeah, I think that's it.
Wow. Your class sounds really fun. Like include everything all together and the
Do my
students can
best.
see
Yeah.
everything. Wow. Really good. So, do you use a lot of different tools to when you're teaching, like including like technology, like involved with the teaching, or any another tools?
Do you mean like assessment tools,
Yeah,
or you
like
mean like
assessment.
assessment tools? Oh, yeah, sure. So yeah, there's a bunch of different assessment strategies, essentially that we use. Obviously, the most common one is tests and quizzes and homework, but we do try to also include other ones as well when we have opportunities. The ones I like the most, the ones I use most often when there is a bit more flexibility, are the flipped classroom activities, and also having like peers teaching other peers, and so seeing how much they know about a certain topic. It's a great one, especially towards the end of a unit or the end of the semester. What else? Yeah, journaling. Journaling is a great one as well. I think for writing and for grammar and for spelling, and to check all of those aspects of English development. So that's a nice handy assessment tool that we use as well.
Oh, okay, cool. So you do like formative assessment and summative assessment as well, is it?
Yeah, so these ones are all mostly, I mentioned a couple of summatives at the start. These other ones I mentioned, in terms of these activities, yeah, they are formative. So yeah, we use a balance, a mixture of both. The summatives are part of the curriculum. We have to do them, obviously, and they are quite structured. But the formative assessments, we have a lot of flexibility over that. And so there's a lot of things that we can do.
Okay, wow. So, how do you provide like feedback to your students, like positive
Mhm,
feedback? And do you like to like just the oral feedback, or what do you
mhm.
do when you?
Sure. So I guess we're always getting, there's always opportunities for us to give feedback to students, even just as simply as, whether they got an answer right or wrong. So, obviously in a group environment, especially depending on the child, like we don't always, I'm not going to tell a kid that they're wrong straight away. There's an opportunity there to maybe find them later and sort of go through some stuff with them one-on-one. Um, Other forms of feedback. Yeah. So I guess, oh, might have to cut this bit out. Let me think. Teacher feedback. So yeah, like homework. So the summative stuff. So homework, quizzes, tests, these types of things. They are very important. And then the other ones, just in terms of through interactions in the class. So telling a kid that they're doing well, that this is great, this desired behavior, things like that. Obviously, these would be the main ones. Yeah.
Mhm. So, do you also like observe individual students and give them individual feedback, or just um, is it,
Yeah, absolutely. So,
like
like for example,
observation?
in an activity, especially like a group activity, float around, we listen to how each of the kids are going. Just as an example, maybe it's like a sentence pattern, like a grammar speaking activity. So then it's easy for us, for me, generally in that sort of 10-15 minute activity, I should be able to know how every kid's going with that. And that's a great instant form of feedback that we get. Then also being able to give them the feedback and correct them in the moment in the activity. So,
Cool. Okay. So do you also do like reflection after you teaching and just improve your next lesson, or?
yeah. So we've got some of I guess that's student to teacher feedback, but yeah, at the end of each class, we've got these like, especially for the older kids, we've got this anonymous, survey through Google Forms that they can fill in. So they can tell us, tell me what they thought of the lesson, whether they thought it was good, what activities they liked. That's super helpful. That's been a great one to implement. And we do have some other measures for kids, even just as simply as just saying, "Hey, raise your hand if you like this," or "What do you think of this activity?" Three out of five, 5 out of 5, 1 out of 5, stuff like that. So that's always a nice way to get feedback from the kids themselves about what we're doing in class.
Oh, okay. Cool. So, do you like really communicate with the parents for like report their learning progress, or
Hmm.
how do you
We
let parents
yeah,
know about the?
we have a parent teacher. Just because I teach in Taiwan, so the circumstances are a little bit different. But for every class, we have a co-teacher. So a lot of the communication goes through the co-teacher for various reasons. And so our actual interaction with the parents and the caregivers is like in the parent-teacher days. There's an opportunity there, but not all of them will come. We do, like each unit will have a report that we send home, just letting them know of the learning progress and communicating things about their behavior and how the kids are going. But the parents can also contact us through the co-teacher as well if they need to. But yeah, I'd say that communication is a little bit limited. It'd be better if we had more, but there's obviously a big language barrier. There's other things to consider as well. So it can be a bit challenging in that way, but we do have opportunities to give them, to connect with them. And, a lot of parents, it really depends, but yeah, there are a lot of parents who are confident enough just to come up and ask questions and find out how their kid's going.
Okay. So do you think it's necessary to talk to parents about the students' progress, or just depends on the parents
Yeah,
Oh,
it's definitely ideal. Like the parents who come and ask questions about their kids, they're very engaged, and usually you can see results in the kids themselves. Like they will improve a lot, or they have a really good attitude towards learning. So, but unfortunately, it is a bit of an ideal. Of course, we want all parents to be involved in the learning process, but for whatever reason, there's lots of reasons why. Some parents are busy, there's other stuff going on. We can't always reach them. But I think in an ideal world, we would have if we had lots of time, we'd have daily communication with parents and letting them know what's happening. But we don't have those measures. I know there's some pretty cool apps, that you can use where there is daily communication. I think the co-teachers are very active and they communicate quite a lot, but we don't quite as much.
Oh, cool. Okay. Just a last question. Like, how do you make judgment on the quality of student works and engage in moderation practice? Like, how do you do a same standard for all the students in the
Sure.
same?
Yeah. So just in this context, being a private language school, we don't necessarily have, government standards in terms of what we're teaching. We do have internal standards, of course, of what we are trying to achieve, or what the kids need, how we assess how well they're doing and things like that. But we do have moderation practices internally. So, we have meetings with our co-teacher once every week, basically. And we have meetings with the other teachers who are teaching a similar grade, similar level, so we can a big part of it's actually about sharing activities and talking about that. But we also do have some moderation practices as well to make sure that we're all sort of grading around the right level as best as we can. And then there are also, we have full teacher meetings as well where this kind of stuff is discussed.
Oh, cool. Thank you for sharing your experience for me, and it's really helpful. And I know a
Sure.
lot of information now. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for
No worries.
interview tonight. Thank you.
Sure. Good luck with your placement. See you later.
Thank you. See you.